Not paraphrasing Frank Sinatra, but if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Okay. So that was the thought process of Speedbird. Let's go to a country that it's not the US.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Props Clear podcast. If you've been enjoying this content and learning something new, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, give it a thumbs up, and be sure to follow me on my other social media platforms. You can find links to those platforms in the description down below. Now, these episodes are for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only, and of course, my goal is to improve public perception surrounding the unmanned aircraft industry by talking with industry leaders. Fasten your seatbelts and let's get started. Today's guest is Manoel Coelho. He's the CEO and co-founder at Speedbird Aero. Manuel, thank you so much for joining me and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk about Speedbird Aero. First of all, tell me, why start a drone company in Brazil?
Great question, Jillian. Thank you very much for having me here, and great question. Actually, we never intended to come to Brazil first. We started the company in the US, more precisely in Phoenix, Arizona. And the idea was to take actually medical supplies, lab supplies. We used to work, my partner and I, Samuel Salomão, used to work in Phoenix, in Scottsdale, to be more precise again, with a global telemedicine company. And we envision the logistics of these very critical items like medications, lab supplies, because obviously telemedicine was breaching the gap between areas where doctors were not available and patients were there, and we were able to deliver the medical advice, but not the necessary goods. So drones were one of the ways that we could bridge that gap, right? So we started in Phoenix, but the regulatory framework of the US was a little bit more complex. And we decided to head back to Brazil, where both of us were originally from. And the regulators in Brazil, the Civil Aviation Authority of Brazil, called ANAC, actually signaled that they were actually implementing a very specific drone regulations that would be more conducive to our business.
So, had you actually done drone operations in Phoenix when you started before you moved down to Brazil, or had you gotten that far, or were you still working through all the regulations?
Actually, we did. The first video is in Scottsdale. You can see the mountains, you can see the desert, you can see, the landscape in Phoenix. The first, year of, testing and developing the systems, developing our knowledge of the space. Right, it was all in Phoenix. Then, obviously, when all the flights were visual, so we're flying visual line of sight. But as we moved to Brazil, things accelerated much faster because we were able to secure the experimental certificates within the year, and then we're flying BVLOS. So we've been flying beyond visual line of sight for the last 4 years of the company.
Talk about an expansion globally. You've gone from operating in Phoenix, then you went to Brazil, then you're operating now in places like Israel and Singapore, and you really have expanded your footprint. And what I had heard is that you also have everything under your wing. So you're not only manufacturing the drones, but you're also operating them and using the software inside of them. So, what are the benefits of that as opposed to bringing in drones that are already manufactured from other places into your company?
Well, that's a great question again. The We never intended to be manufacturers, right? We actually, the first time that we flew our drones in Phoenix, were a hodgepodge of parts from multiple manufacturers. Obviously, we designed the cargo bay, the payload release mechanisms, but we use mostly out of the shelf parts. When we arrived in Brazil, that we started the process of type certification. We realized the extent that the regular off-the-shelf solutions were not viable for this type of business, because I'll tell you one of the things that happened right away. We were working with a frame that we used to obtain from outside Brazil, and 6 months later, that frame was discontinued. There was slightly different frame that they offered, but that would avoid it entirely all the hours of flying that we had to comply to the requirements, right, for us to advance on the type certification process. So we said, okay, frame, we have to build it here. And then all the other parts followed, right? MTBF for parts. We're looking at failures, mean time between failures. What are the engines that we can use, the motors that are going to withstand the rigorous, schedule that we have, 12-hour operations. Three, four flights an hour, and we start really um, becoming an assembler, becoming an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, taking responsibility for the quality of the parts, developing some of them, and we found that this actually had the most success because we were both operating and going back with the lessons of the field, returning to the office, returning to the factory, and adjusting our solutions. So today we do this, as you mentioned, at a few locations there. We don't do things by ourselves. We do operate and manufacture in Brazil. We design, we manufacture, we certify, operate, and have the business intelligence, right, for our partners that are business, very large businesses like the biggest brewery in the world, one of the largest food delivery companies. We have the largest labs, pharmaceutical companies working here. So we pass back this business intelligence as well. But outside of Brazil, in countries like Singapore, UK, Israel, we have very, very good partners that we passed our knowledge of operating our technology and combined with their knowledge of the terrain, with the location, with the civil aviation authorities, we developed a very cohesive manner in how to approach the regulatory bodies. So actually, it was very successful because they have the local operations, they have the local laws, local people. We're coming with a drone that has been proven to work in this type of scenarios, and that convergence actually worked quite well for assuring a very good partnership between these companies and Speedbird.
Did you ever imagine that your drone company would grow this much or that you'd be working in the drone industry at this magnitude?
Always intended. Actually, we're very ambitious when it comes to our plans. Obviously, being in Brazil and money is very expensive here, right? We had to adjust our appetite to say, okay, let's take one step at a time. We're gonna make it back to the United States. That's our desire. It's the biggest market. It's the most complex market. Just like Brazil, U.S. is number one in terms of private aviation. Brazil is number two. So we have, for example, the city with the most number of helicopter flights in the world, São Paulo.
I
Okay,
did
there
not
are
know that. That's an interesting fact.
there are streets in São Paulo. Okay, there are more heliports than bus stops. That's a
Wow.
fact. Okay.
Wow.
So you can see that if we, not paraphrasing Frank Sinatra, but if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Okay. So that was the thought process of Speedbird. Let's go to a country that it's not the US, which is pretty big, complex, aviation world that we have to be very well structured, and the agreements between unmanned and manned, UTM, or everything has to be perfect not to create
Mhm.
a major, incident. Brazil, we have areas that we could actually develop, but
Mhm.
also we have taken very big urban areas with 3.5 million people. For example, we have perhaps, I'm not saying this without checking because I don't know everywhere in the world what's happening, but I can tell from what we know, the largest BVLOS operation in a very big urban center in the world, which is a city of Salvador, 3.5 million people. We have about 44 kilometers that we connect inside the city, um,
In Salvador,
beyond in
Brazil?
Salvador, Brazil. It's a peninsula, so we use the water. We use some waterways to avoid flying over heavily populated areas. But this is actually an operation that makes us very proud because it's very complex. We have helicopters, we have civil aviation, commercial aviation, and even surfers with kite surfing and other things that we have to avoid as we're landing the aircraft. So it's a very interesting lessons that we had operating in urban areas. But the focus was always to go back to the biggest markets. Brazil is one of them, obviously, but Europe and the United States was our ultimate goal.
And why drones for you? What makes you so excited about this specific part of aviation, and why UAS?
Great question. I'm not a drone pilot. I have never flown a drone, nor I will ever fly a drone. I'm not the engineer, right? I know my limitations, what I'm good at, what I'm not. My partner Samuel is the enthusiast of the drone technology. I like what drones can do. I look at the end result, right? When we're saving lives, and I don't say this, not only directly by being able to deliver medications, vaccines, delivering, for example, much needed lab work ahead of time, or people's mails that arrive 24, 48 hours before they're supposed to be there. More important is we're avoiding unnecessary risks of delivery personnel, especially in our country here in Brazil, where we are today. Um, we have about 12,000 deaths a year of people
Wow.
crossing the big avenues in delivering. Here, the deliveries that happen with Grubhub in the US, Uber Eats, is done via motorcycle. So you can see these guys just zipping through traffic and trying to deliver as fast as we can.
New York City's like that too. You
Correct.
know, when I drive in, I drive into New York City all the time because it's right across the river from me, and it is very scary, especially at night, because they're flying through. And although sometimes they have their own dedicated lane, they're often, when you're trying to make a left turn, they're flying through those intersections.
Well, New York is very similar. It's a great example. Cities like Phoenix, they are much broader, so
Mhm.
cars can actually move a little bit easier. Cities
Yeah.
like New York, Boston, older cities, which is in the case of Brazil, they're
Mhm.
much more complex. So they use motorcycles or scooters, right? And that has a cost to it's much more risky to do this type of operations in a motorcycle. So we believe that we can optimize traffic by leaving the drone. For example, the drone can leave from a shopping mall, and we have this type of operations today for over 3 years, going from a shopping mall and distributing into strategic locations where the motorcycle drivers only have to go for less than a mile to deliver to people's
Wow.
homes. Okay, so that takes them away from the busy arteries and big avenues of the cities, which makes it a lot safer. So it's optimizing the traffic.
So Salvador, Brazil first, and then you're going to come to New York City and put that in place there, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Now we're doing the same thing in Salvador. We're doing the same thing in city like Rio de Janeiro, Belo Horizonte, which are also the top cities in Brazil, other than São Paulo. São Paulo is much more complex. It's kind of like New York with the helicopter traffic. So we're negotiating now the UTM of Brazil. We are part of the development of the UTM Brazil, which is coming soon. So all this is a lot of work. So that's what gets me excited about the technology. The drone itself is great. We have a lot of people here that are airspace engineers in our company, and they know everything about it. I'm always, in awe of what this technology can do. For example, we're doing swine semen, artificial insemination in farms. So the drones leave the genetic headquarters where the male pigs are, take the
Mhm.
semen, go to the female areas. They have to be far away from the males because, as you know very well, foot and mouth disease, any diseases are conducted, by the ground, by soil. So avoiding touching the soil, cars from going in and out is actually very important. So drones leave from clean area to clean area and accomplishing that without risk of contamination.
Well, didn't think we'd be talking about that in this
There's a lot
podcast.
of
That's pretty
things.
interesting.
There's water
Okay.
sampling as well. We're doing, for example, in the United Kingdom with our partner Skyports, we do water sampling. So the drone arrives in the ocean, in the lakes, and lower the probe. It's not collecting the water like every other water sampling that there are a few drones that do that. Actually, it's
Mhm.
actually reading the quality of water real time. So that's
Mhm.
the world's first, as we know it again, so we're part of it. It's a combined effort. So I'm just giving you here a little of flavor for so many things that the drones are doing. Ship to shore, going from the shore, picking up cargo from the ship and bringing it back to shore, and vice versa. So a lot of applications.
What do you think sets apart Speedbird Aero from the rest of the drone companies out there. A lot of drone companies are doing delivery. A lot of drone companies are doing, advanced air mobility. They're focusing on the future in cities. And I spoke with Drone Express, who's doing a lot of that work in Cleveland and in some of those areas in Ohio. So Drone Express is doing some work like that in Ohio and in Georgia. What sets your company apart from the rest, do you think?
Well, I don't think of setting us apart. I think it's bringing us together. At the end of the day, is companies that are alike. There are a lot of companies that everyone is trying to do many things, right? Our
Mm-hmm.
focus is on the safe operations and scalable operations of these drones to hit the units of economics. And that's the word. What sets us apart from others is the units of economics. One of the reasons we chose to manufacture in a country like Brazil, right? We didn't have to spend as much money in the process of certification. That impacts on your ability to deliver at the units of economics required to transport pizza, hamburgers, medications, and other things. So at the end of the day, the technologies are there, always been there for a long, long time. If you look at what the U.S. government has been doing with drones and Israel, and sometimes people ask me, why are you the only foreign company for the last 3 years operating in the state of Israel doing deliveries? Don't they have drones? Yeah, they do. They do have very capable engineers, and there are some even Israeli companies operating in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, we were able to do it safely. We were able to show the safety operations of the drones, the ease of operations of our drones, and also the cost effectiveness. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the major differences. At what cost are you going to be delivering hamburgers and pizza? Is it worth actually looking at now, or should we wait until this technology reduces in cost? We believe that we already hit units of economics that are actually conducive for scalable drone operations, even in food delivery, even in beverage delivery, which is actually perhaps one of the most difficult
Mm-hmm.
areas to hit the units of economics.
I mean, everything is getting so expensive around the world. There's inflation. Everyone talks about that here in the US. Groceries are getting more expensive. So, for a lot of people, they may not want to pay the even more for drone delivery or something like that. So, it sounds like what you're doing is you're trying to find a cost-effective way to get all this done so that people feel like they can pay for it and it's okay with them, right?
That's correct, Jillian. Imagine if you can actually show a drone that is not cost prohibitive, right? That is can deliver the units of economics, and at the same time has type certification
Mhm.
from one of the biggest and most well-known agencies in the world, and that's what we are offering. That's what I would say. Bring all the other companies that are trying to do the same thing together. Some have been more successful than others. We believe that we've been successful in achieving that. There's a space for everyone. I'm in awe. Also, with my colleagues are doing in other parts of the world, we learned a lot from each other. Um,
Mhm.
but what Speedbird focuses is to have safe operations, scalable, but with type certification. So we are actually developing that. We already have two drones, two types of aircraft type
Mhm.
certified that can actually be allowed to fly very soon over people, very soon with hazmat, which is actually a step above the blood samples and other things we're doing. So now we're taking a little bit more on the research and development side. We're working with the biggest institutes in Brazil that they want to do chemical samplings and other things.
Mhm.
So a lot going on here. And soon, hopefully, we'll be back in the US and in other parts, taking this technology forward.
Did you actually want to learn to fly a drone though? I have to ask. Are you interested in you said you haven't flown one or you haven't actually like, you're not the one that does the flying. Do you ever want to learn even just for fun on the side?
I love it. I am in awe. The reason I don't do it is on purpose. So I do not have a say on the operations because I'm still responsible for the commercial side. And sometimes the
Mhm.
commercial vein it takes over, right? My inclination to be a business person and like to everything is possible. Let's do it. Aviation, this is counter, so I have to defer to our experts. So I do this in our company. We have our chief operation officer, we have a chief flight operation officers. They are pilots. They are very well known in the industry, and they can say, "No, Manuel, this cannot be done at this time," and I have to actually default to them. And I like that. I like this idea. I have a DJI small little drone to do some uh, pictures, but I don't even fly it. I say, look, somebody, you guys do it.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it. And the best I have done was to go to very remote islands. We had some challenges here that only could take one person, so I did it. I went with the drone, but our team flew it from about 1,000 miles away. We have the capability to do that. For example, we do have a lot of trainings done that the pilots can be in Singapore and the drone can be here. And we can say, okay, since this is your drone, we're manufacturing it, it's ready, and you've been trained, go ahead and fly it. And we have our area of drone testing. The pilots in Singapore are able to actually train with our drones in Brazil.
And they're able to take off here, or not here, but in Brazil,
Yeah,
while the pilots in Singapore are operating them.
yeah, that's the whole idea because what we are doing already in Brazil is we have ramp assistance.
Wow.
It's not necessarily drone pilots. So all of
Mhm.
our drone operations are happening in our command and control center in Sao Paulo. So
Mhm.
we have the teams that can actually fly multiple drones at the same time. So what they're doing is, we hire local, youngsters that are very
Mhm.
good. They're probably recent grads that want to learn engineering. They want to, and we have people from all walks of life. Honestly, as long as they are serious, they are committed, they are disciplined. We can actually convert them. Even delivery motorcycle personnel that now are converting into becoming drone ramp assistants. We call it operators, right? So they're there. They take the battery out. They put the battery in. A lot of people talk about, oh, when are you going to have an electronic arm?
Mhm.
Well, when we still have the regulatory framework dictating somebody needs to be on the ground, there's no point in spending millions in making this automated. So we have the labor force here, so we're
Mhm.
using it.
Wow.
We just have to train them to be able to be able hand, going up, changing the battery, putting the cargo, ensuring that the area is safe for us to produce, to operate. And then they say clear, and all the operations is done from our center over 1,000 kilometers away.
Wow, it's remotely operating all of that. That's pretty crazy. Wow.
Correct.
And
Correct.
then where do you see Speedbird Aero going in the next, I'd say like 2 to 5 years? Do you have any hopes for expanding into other countries, or is the goal to improve and expand your aircraft offerings?
We have flown in the U.S. already. We've flown in Chicago with simulations with Eve, Blade. Helicopters arriving. The cargo would arrive with the helicopter. Then we've taken it to. We have the videos here to the Illinois Medical District. We partner with some good companies in the U.S. We believe we'll be doing the same. So in the U.S., we are taking it a different approach. We already opened the company in the U.S. Now we're hiring people. Gradually, we'll be negotiating with the FAA. We are finalizing the type certification of our latest aircraft, and we'll be taking that to the FAA because we want to do in the U.S. We want to become not only the OEM but also the operator. So we will
Mhm.
operate our drones and also partner at some point. We also partner with other companies that would like to have aircraft systems that can be reliable. We're more
Mhm.
than happy to offer the Speedbird aircraft to them. So we will reserve the right to operate because I believe the U.S. is. We want to do it, especially in the beginning, with pragmatic approach. Not to criticize any companies because I'm not in their shoes, but a lot of companies raise a lot of money and spent a lot of money trying to deliver and doing what we're doing. We are very frugal. We're very focused. The idea is when we arrive, we can provide good operations, quality operations, safe operations, but at a reasonable cost.
And safety is so paramount in this industry, that's something that I'm glad you're mentioning every chance you get in this discussion. That's very important. Is there any other goal that you have personally with Speedbird? It sounds like you've got two hexacopters, you've got one fixed wing with some propellers on it, you've got the drone port. Is there any other goal that you have for your company?
I think the UTM will be a major step for us. We partner with other UTM companies right now, and we have learned. So we'll be able to actually bring the best technologies together under Speedbird and riding for UTM Brazil. But
And for
I
anyone who doesn't know what UTM is, because some of the listeners,
okay,
I'm trying to get them to learn the drone industry. Some people have, no knowledge of the drone industry. Some people are experts in this industry. So UTM is all about traffic management. It's all
yes.
about making sure that the drones and the helicopters and the airplanes can all coexist in one location.
That is correct. So the unmanned, uncrewed traffic management systems that countries are now developing, they're testing. Some of them, like Israel, where we've been operating for 3 years, are well advanced. We have great partners like Highlander. We have partners in Brazil as well that are doing it. That actually gives us the 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 certainty that this industry will flourish, that we will reach scale that everyone wants. So that's my goal for Speedbird, is to reach scale, right? We want to go away from a few operations. We're already hitting scale with a few operations in Brazil, but without the UTM, we have to keep very close eyes in the skies because we see things every day, especially from not to take a jab at manned aviation, but they have to get used to, that we have new entrants in the market, newcomers. We are the new kids on the block. So we have to be very humble, but our time has come also to share the airspace, right? So that's the message that we are delivering to them. In our recent developments here, with now we're able to receive investment from the third largest aircraft manufacturer in the world. That is actually shows the credibility that we actually able to achieve. You know, cooperating with these very big institutes here and abroad, big companies like Qualcomm, like Thales, Embraer, and not to mention a few others that we partner. This it takes a village, right? And that's what I mentioned at this point in time. We avoid even saying competitors, because the major competition is to make this viable at the end of the day, to make this scalable. Once we make it scalable, we have a lot of space for everyone, and then at some point, the market will become more crowded, and then we'll really compete. But at this point, let's just unite forces. Let's make sure that we have safe operations, because one accident can turn it back a lot of years of development, right? So we don't want any
And
mavericks
that
right
would hurt
now.
every drone company.
Correct. That's why we're very conservative. We probably hear safety, safety, type certification, the right approach. Let's not take a step, that we cannot sustain, the pace. So we're very careful with that, because at the end of the day, safety is paramount. Without, showing the safe operations of our drones and the scalability with the safety in mind, we won't be able to obtain the necessary regulatory support and framework to allow us to actually scale.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Manuel. Thank you so much. If anyone has more, interest in learning about Speedbird Aero, how can they find out more?
Well, our website is there as well. I can leave my phone number. It's always there. Email. Anytime someone has a question, we want people to join us. In this new world, this new aviation that's coming, that will follow what the existing aviation took 100 years or more to develop. Right. So our forefathers done. This is nothing new under the sun. This is just an evolution, natural evolution. So anyone that has new ideas, that want to learn, we are open. If I'm not available, somebody will be available. Always here. We love talking about it. We love actually sharing and learning, because that's how we make ourselves a better company, and do a better work for society as a whole. This is not just empty words. This is real desire to make sure that we can actually get this off the ground, literally, so we can actually do it. So anyone that's listening to Jillian now, please don't hesitate to contact us, to go to the website, look at the videos. We can share with you, everything we're doing. Please share with us what you're doing, and this is what makes us, at the end of the day, stronger. So thank you.
If you'd like to get in touch with Manuel or have topics and suggestions for Props Clear, be sure to email me, angelswings.jillian@gmail.com. That's ANGELSWINGS.JILLIAN@gmail.com. I'll see you later.